Kim here, Director of Communications for the Arizona Senate Republicans, and joining me today is Senator Vince Leach of District 11. Now, the Biden administration last month released some guidance that really targets the poorest of children within our public school system, and it has to do with taking away their meals. Can you elaborate on this, Senator Leach?
You know, the Biden administration never ceases to surprise us and things that come out. The latest was actually an executive order, and it deals with, after you sort through the executive order and all the fine print and all the bureaucracy of the writing, and I read through it several times, but what it really comes down to is holding kids' lunch money at risk if they don't abide by certain regulations. What are those regulations? To cut right to the chase, that your person sexual identity should be identified as to the bathroom that you use. In other words, if you're transsexual and me as a male, I identify as a woman, then I should be able to go in the girls' bathroom.
So rewinding a little bit, the USDA provides money for these low-income students to have breakfast, lunch, meals, etc. at school. And we saw this memo that was put out by the USDA talking about exactly what you mentioned, sexual identity. If there's any sort of child that feels discriminated against when it comes to their gender, schools are going to not be able to receive those federal funds to feed poor children. Can you give us some examples?
Well, it puts schools at a very high risk, because when you sit down and you look at the amount of money that's being spent in free and reduced lunches throughout the state of Arizona, in fact, across the country, it's an enormous amount of money. So if you were a school board member, if I was a school board member, no matter what our political beliefs may be in this particular area, there is significant money attached to this. And to force people to do something that is against their social wishes, their personal wishes, their religious, or just what is right, is just, it boggles the mind to how far that they will go to control the individual person. So you must do what 4% of the population wants you to do. It's just an overreach, and it's terrible that they go to that population, which is already in need. We're already producing and providing free and reduced lunches to these children, and said, if you don't do this, we will take it back. And they make no bones about it. They seem rather boisterous about it, that this is what we're going to do.
Can you give us a real life example of what would occur at a school to where that money might be taken away for those reduced lunches? Yeah,
I have a school in my district, a K-8 school, that is about 70 to 80% free and reduced lunch. That would be horrendous for the average income, and this happens to be in Pinal County. The average income, per capita income in Pinal County is $27,000 a year. So naturally, a lot of people are on free and reduced lunches just because there's not income. That would go away. So you're taking away, if you don't have food, you can't learn. If you can't have food, you can't work, you can't do things. It's what keeps you going, it's what nourishes you. And to take away, particularly the breakfast, which is always considered the biggest and most important meal of the day, and then lunch, it's just beyond the pale that they would be reaching out to actually hurt people with the threat of taking away their lunch money. And I'm so frustrated about it. It's hard to come up with how frustrated I really am over this issue.
So essentially, some of the guidance within the memo that was put out by the USDA talks about signage. If signage isn't inclusive, i.e., if a bathroom isn't designated for all instead of gender-specific male and female, and a family has a problem with that, they can make a complaint. That would move up the chain, and potentially that school would lose out on that money.
Exactly. Now, we were through this battle several years ago. In fact, before I was in the legislature, then Representative John Kavanaugh had what was called the bathroom bill and said you can't do that in the state of Arizona. Fortunately, federal laws and federal regulations, in many cases, trump what we can do, no pun intended, what we can do here at the state. And then when you tie the fiscal note to it, that they would be losing, it would be just a serious, we need to push back. School boards need to push back. We're pushing back here at the state level. People need to know about this, be aware of it, and say, enough. Show up at your school board meetings and say, this is enough. Push back today.
And overall, this is a big safety concern. 13-year-old Johnny could wake up one day, say, I'm a woman, I want to use the female's bathroom, enter the woman's restroom or the girls' locker room, the girls' showers, and if the staff and administrators don't accommodate and that family makes a complaint, they again would lose that funding. This is going to be a big issue for those little girls that are using these facilities. If Johnny wants to join the women's sports team at school, again, this is another safety issue, and Arizona has been very tough on these sorts of ideals that the extreme left is pushing.
There is something basically wrong with letting a 16-year-old male into a 7th grader or 8th grader's girls' bathroom. I could visualize and I could verbalize things that could happen. I'm not going to do this on this video, but it's not good. It's just not good, and we can't put that. Why would we even go there? What benefit does society gain by putting those two elements together? There's none, absolutely none. And the vehicle that they're using to get there is terrible.
And so we probably won't realize the real effects of this right now because kids are in summer vacation, but this will become an issue as we head into our next fall semester for our students. And Arizona is going to be fighting back. I know you and the rest of our Senate leadership team have talked about fighting against Biden if this is pushed forward and if this starts impacting students. Is there anything else you can elaborate on?
I had a note this morning from one of my constituents on this issue, and they saw, because I had put it out on social media, and they pushed back, and we said, we've got to stop this. We've got to fight back at every level. About $4,000 of the $14,000 that we have for students spending per pupil funding in the state of Arizona comes from the federal government. That weighs on our decisions, but there's something in this senator that says we've got to start weaning ourselves off of federal funds, particularly as it relates to core issues like education. Because if they're going to push this through, gender identity through, then what else will they push forward? Say if you don't teach CRT, if you don't teach SEL, social emotional learning, if you don't teach the elements of ESG, emotional social governance, if you don't teach those in school, so what is next? What is next about the Second Amendment? We had a bill today on the floor that didn't pass, that we simply wanted curriculum adjustment to make sure that we were teaching civics. Those are all the things that the government, federal government, could wander into, and through the dollar, the almighty dollar, can take control of our schools, more control of our schools than they have now.
All right, Senator Vince Leach, just another example of the big government that Democrats are supporting with their extremist ideas, pushing this on our state's children. So we'll continue to watch this issue, and thank you for that legislative update.